Now, when you hear the national anthem, what do? Do you stand up and observe it, sing along? Or when 3 customers at a royalty-themed tea room in County Durham stayed seated for God Save the Queen, the owner actually threw them out. But far from scaring off new customers, business, as a result, is booming at the tea room. Busloads of people, apparently, showing up to immerse themselves in all things royal. Louise Hubble has been along to join them.
In a quiet corner of County Durham, something extraordinary is happening. People are travelling from far and wide, often in style, for tea. But this is tea with a difference, with some very special guests.
So you would like a Balmoral bite?
There is nothing subtle here. Royal memorabilia crowds the shelves. This is a labour of love and the result of 35 years of collecting. Royalty is celebrated in every way, in song, in china, in cardboard, and even in wool. And every afternoon, at a designated time, this happens.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 3 o'clock. It's time for the Queen. Please be upstanding for the national anthem. Send her victorious, happy and glorious.
But there has been an incident here at Royal Teas. 3 women refused to stand for the national anthem, and they were asked to leave.
How can you get offended by the national anthem? Can you get offended by the national anthem? No, of course you can't. It's common courtesy to stand for a national anthem, whichever country you're in.
The doors of this regal retreat are only open to coincide with the Jubilee. It's due to close at the end of August, although there is a hint it could continue if Her Majesty's subjects demand.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. It's all these beautiful people, you know, and the atmosphere as well.
I wanted to get here on time for 3 o'clock for the national anthem, and I was bombing down the street and the clock was ticking and I made it with about 30 seconds to spare.
We've got a Jubilee party next week, so we wanted to come up and just have a look. Absolutely brilliant.
It's in Holland not possible, I think, no.
No tea would be wrong with this in Holland.
No. It's really nice. I like it.
And finally, the tea rooms also house a throne room, which may be worth a visit before the journey home. Louise Hubble, BBC News.
22 minutes past 8, our next guest regularly attends important state occasions, is used to having all the cameras pointing at her, and is getting ready for a very busy Jubilee weekend.
Despite the build-up though, this lady, can we meet her now, isn't called Elizabeth, she's Ella Slack. And she does have a royal connection because she acts as the Queen's stand-in at rehearsals for major events. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And dressed perfectly for the party, we may say so.
Okay. Yeah.
So how does this happen? How did you become the Queen's stand-in?
Well, I worked at the BBC, and many years ago, the producer who did the Cenotaph wanted to realign all the cameras at the Cenotaph because the Queen had complained the sun was in her eyes. And I was arranging extra rehearsal time, and I'm similar height to the Queen, so I offered to go to Whitehall and stand at the Cenotaph in the place. I didn't realise I'd have to stand there for about 2 hours with all the traffic going by. And then it led on to other things.
So you have an insight and understanding of what the Queen has to do on a day-to-day basis.
I know. I think she's amazing. You know, I practised at Windsor last weekend, and she stood an awful long time to watch all the troops going by.
So you've done Windsor, you've done the Cenotaph. What other sort of places have you been?
I used to do State Opening of Parliament, VVJ Day. That was the best one because I rode in her carriage around Trafalgar Square on a lovely sunny afternoon. Everybody was waving at me. It's very hard to smile for a long time too. It's quite difficult. And I walked across Horse Guards Parade through lots of children with 2 Gurkhas in front of me. I've practised for the Golden Wedding. Lots of people do the jobs, but it was just because I was working at the BBC and I'm the right height. And of course I've just been rehearsing for this weekend. I did it in March in my winter coat and black hat with lovely sunshine, sitting on top of Spirit of Chartwell, which is all going to be on the BBC at the weekend. And I was waving at everybody, but all the boats going by, they didn't know I was the Queen, so it was very sad. So when it came to the April rehearsal, I had my outfit, I had this outfit made and someone trimmed my hat for me. It's the first time I've done that, actually. And we were going to go on top of Spirit of Chartwell, but it was a terrible day. It was cold and windy and wet, so I could only go up there briefly.
To be clear, you're not employed as a kind of look-alike. You are employed because you are the sort of right height, and so there is no requirement for you, presumably, to dress up and look like the Queen. Is that your decision?
No, there isn't. And in the 17 years I was in the sport and events department of the BBC, I just happened to be around when rehearsals were happening, so I went and stood there.
So you might have been wearing jeans and a t-shirt?
Well, no. I would try to be in the right kind of clothes, but when it got nearer to like the millennium and the golden wedding, I did try to think about the kind of thing that she would wear.
And occasionally, presumably during the rehearsal, you've picked up something that's very useful for Her Majesty. I think it was one time when you were walking past the horns and you...
Yes, and they all stopped, each musician stopped playing as I went by, so there wouldn't be a loud blast of music in her ear. And one thing I notice now, a lot of people are very tall now, and the Queen is quite small like me, and we walk fairly slowly. And getting out of a car, you find that suddenly people are walking fast ahead of you. They've got to slow up. It does take more time. And getting on and off boats or in and out of carriages, it's quite difficult, but she's very good at all these things. She's
Have you ever been
wonderful.
mistaken for the Queen?
Well, only in the last 2 weeks, actually. Since Saturday, when I was in the press, even coming through the airport, everybody say, "Good morning, Your Majesty." So it's quite funny, really.
And have you ever met?
No, I've never met her. I've been near her quite a lot of times. I've been in Buckingham Palace talking to somebody when a lady went by and looked in the door, and afterwards I said, "Oh, that was the Queen walking by." I believe that she does watch sometimes. I like to think when
Watch your rehearsals?
I think when I was at Windsor on Saturday, maybe she was looking through the window to see. And I was wearing turquoise, and you wonder whether she decided she'd also, I can see a picture of what she was wearing, and it was a similar colour. And the same thing happened at the Golden Jubilee. I wore blue, and my father said to me, "Why are you wearing blue? The Queen doesn't wear blue very often." But the next day, she wore blue. So there we go.
Fascinating job you got. With a bit of luck, if she's watching this morning, having seen you here today, she'll say, "Right, well, I've got to go," and they've had the rehearsal for me on the sofa. I've got
I'll
to
be wearing
up.
teal.
Absolutely. Well,
Ella,
it's going to be a wonderful weekend,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it
Lots
is.
of coverage and
Ella,
lovely weather.
Thank you so very much. Thanks
Thank
for joining
you.
us this morning. We
Lovely
feel
to
honoured.
see you. Yes.